12 o'clock, and I would like to call the meeting to order, if that's okay with everyone. And as soon as you're ready, do not feel rushed.
Thank you.
Start with a roll call.
We're good. Mr. Egan?
Here.
Ms. Lasky? Mr. John?
Here.
Mr. Becker?
Here.
Mr. Gentili?
Here.
Ms. Goodman? Ms. Kaminsky?
And I'm assuming everyone got a copy of the agenda, got a chance to look over it. Any changes or objections? Right, call for a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved and second. All in favor of accepting the agenda as printed, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. And you're a celebrity. We always say public comment, and there's no one to comment, so you're up on the agenda right now.
Well, now, okay.
Yeah.
Jerry was Manistee County resident. I'm just curious, first of all, are there any statistics on cancellations and delays, like monthly, annually for this case there? What are, can I ask what they are?
Sure.
It's part of our monthly meeting,
I
Jerry.
might even be able
Yeah.
to pull that
Mhm.
slide up from my presentation later. So, bottom half of this, so last calendar year, 22, and then the first month of 23. In this column, the first is canceled flights and delayed flights, and as a percentage of the total scheduled flights. And this is for all reasons, whether it's carrier controllable or not. There are statistics that various people track for different reasons, but this is all canceled flights.
Through all Cape Air or just Manistee?
This is all air carriers, so Cape Air.
Okay. Well, as an example, November seems kind of high at 36% for cancellations to me. I mean, I haven't talked to anyone that's flown out of here that hasn't had a problem. And I had a problem with a delay and a cancellation coming back from Chicago where 5 minutes before we were supposed to board, they canceled the flight. And the excuse that time was the pilot was in an accident. And I was kind of under the assumption that pilots are required to be in the airport an hour before their departures. So how could you have a cancellation 5 minutes before somebody's ready to board? That seemed odd to me. And I guess another question is, I know there aren't a lot of airlines, but is anyone looking for different carriers to come into here? Oh.
Well, we are under a multi-year contract, so that new contract started October 1st, so it's 2 years. So, and we don't choose the air carrier, US DOT does. That's a federal program,
Is that
essential
because they're
service.
getting the subsidy they choose?
Yes. Yep.
We only had one airline apply for the position this year. It's a 2-year contract. Before, it was normal to have 4 different airlines apply, but the airline industry's gone through major changes.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Well, of course.
and then again, Jerry, public comment is not a point to debate, but you've got some questions. This is unusual for us to even have somebody for public comment, so we're kind of.
Well, I just wanted to relay one more fact. As I was leaving then, and I was asked, how is everything going? And I just made the comment that when my delay was because the pilot was sick. Of course, he could be sick, but, you know, for me, working in the trucking business, I know every excuse why something doesn't get there on time. I made a lot of them, and you gotta be creative. And I said, you know, that's kind of a lame excuse, and the person at the desk says to me, well, if you don't like our airline, why are you using it? Why don't you go to Traverse City or Grand Rapids? So, to me, that means they don't even wanna be here.
Yeah.
And I think after your 2-year contract, you should be looking for someone else, if there is. Because my point is, go like this, what would you rather have, a handful of nothing or a handful of crap, because to me, that's what you have right now. And sometimes a handful of nothing is better than the alternative. I'd rather go to Traverse City instead.
What I would respond to that is, I'd encourage you to stay for the rest of the meeting, because Cape Air is actually on the Zoom today
I know
to
that.
address these issues,
Mhm.
because we've been raising them for at least 6 months now, if not longer. So they were gonna give us an update today, so.
Okay, great, cool.
And does our agenda have public comment at the end of the meeting as well?
It does not, but we do have new business.
Other items.
Other items and
So,
things.
you know, if you wanna stay around and make further comments at the end of the meeting, you'd be probably.
I'll stay for the rest of the meeting, but my comments are done.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that, takes us now to the minutes from, the last meeting. Again, they were sent out, last week. Anyone have any changes, comments, questions?
Motion to approve the minutes of the prior meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on, Susan, you're up.
Okay. So hopefully you had a chance to look at the accounts payable. Just need you guys to approve those. Really, the only thing different this month is we have the insurance payments, commercial liability, and then also the general liability. That's why it's 61,000 instead of the 41 that it usually is.
And that kinda jumped up at me with that expense, and I see the different or the different insurers, and the county has MMR, Michigan Municipal Risk. And that might be a place for us to have some savings, and apparently there's 3 different, insurers or policies that the county, or that the airport authority has.
The last time that was looked into was when Tom Kaminsky was still there, and at that time, he said they didn't touch airports.
Mm.
That may have changed, because that's been probably at least 5 years now, so.
Yeah, I would think all of our, I know Lisa made the contact with Greg Mason, and I guess just forward the policies to Lisa within a week or so, and we can forward it on and see if they're willing to, if they can, and if there's a savings.
What do you say? What's that for?
It's for commercial and for the general liability. It's 2 separate ones. And then, of course, there's the auto policies.
Anything else from the accounts payable?
Nope,
Hey,
unless someone had a question.
motion to approve that?
Motion to approve the monthly accounts payable. Second.
Get in the game, George.
Get in the minute.
Gotcha.
Okay, roll call on that one, I believe.
Okay, Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Lasky, Mr. Dant,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Ms. Goodman, Ms. Kaminsky.
On to the renew expense, trial balance.
Yeah, I'll go through these really quick here. So the, January 2023 revenue and expenditures, just shows you your December, compares it to your January. And then, it gives you a year-to-date balance of where you're at. Also includes that transfer out to the airport fund, which is at bottom of the $295,000, which got transferred, which I gave you guys a copy of, this right here. So this will be included with your packet from now on, just to see where you're at with what you've spent there. So, you can see where that got transferred in, the 295, and then there was a little bit of spent out of there so far. I know I just paid something else out of there, just so you guys can track that to see where you're at. And then you have your trial balance showing your net position of $156,879.57. Anybody have any questions on any of that?
Probably more appropriate offline, but, as far as the required quarterly reports for those funds,
So March 31st will be the first one that we'll have to do.
is that something I should do, you'll do, we'll do together?
We can do together.
Okay, so,
'cause I'll need to know like when they're expensed, 'cause we asked for, 3 different categories, so I'll need to know where those fall, yeah. And then I can do an Excel and just start tracking those and just turn that in as with the thing, so.
Might be slightly off topic, but where are we at with all the Affordable Cares funding, CARES? Is all that finally wrapping up, or is that still backlogged?
There is one more grant, and it is on the agenda and in the packet this. Those programs.
Anyone else?
Approve the monthly P&L statement? Or,
And off with a roll call.
Mr. Don?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman? Kaminsky? Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Lasky?
All right, and I think that takes us right to the Cape Air report.
Hearing, and then we. Okay, Andrew, I think you are up.
Thank you, Barry.
Unless Matt is gonna jump in and do all the talking.
No, well, I'm glad to have Matt here. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, I'm Andrew Bonney. I'm the Senior Vice President of Planning for Cape Air. I'm coming to you via Zoom today from our headquarters in Hyannis, Massachusetts, and I'm joined by Matt Reinhardt, our Midwest Regional Director. I think it was Jerry, who I'm not sure I can see in the room. But Jerry, I want you to know we hear your comments. The stats that Barry put up on the screen are embarrassing, and there's really no excuse for it. So I want this group to know that I accept full responsibility for where we are. It's unacceptable. I sent you guys after the meeting when I was there in person, what our target needs to be, which is 97% company controllable completion, and we're not there. And we've made some steps in the right direction, but you guys have a right to expect at least 97% completion rate. And we're not there. We are taking some strategic steps toward a solution, which I do want to talk about in just a minute, but also just want to lay the table for you where Cape Air is in the Midwest. As you know, in October, we rebid, or we filed notice to terminate and rebid 3 communities that we serve in EAS in the Midwest, ostensibly because the economics through COVID have just become untenable for Cape Air in the region, in Kirksville, Marion, and Owensboro, Kentucky. Through that process, we submitted proposals at higher rates to continue service, some into, actually all into St. Louis. As of community comment is due today, and as of Friday, we'd seen community comment from all 3 communities, and each community supported Contour Air, not Cape Air. So we are looking at a shifting landscape at Cape Air's operation in the Midwest. What that means for Manistee is that our maintenance depot, assuming DOT goes with the community recommendation, which they typically do, it means that our maintenance depot will necessarily need to unplug from St. Louis because we won't be flying there anymore. That does mean that we're able to shift resources up to Manistee and Chicago O'Hare to support the Manistee service. In addition, our Burlington service that flies to Chicago and is also crewed from the Chicago crew base, which supplies the pilots for the Manistee service, that also will have less demand on it. We continue to be short-staffed in that crew base, but by not having the Burlington flights out of that crew base effective April 1st, we will necessarily be in a much better position to provide crew for the Manistee service. Separately, on a strategic initiative, I need to sort of articulate another industry problem and how it actually in fact benefits Manistee and Cape Air in particular. Because of the 1,500-hour rule and associated issues around that with regional airline staffing, there has been a huge run-up in pay rates at the regional airlines and at some of the legacy carriers and some of the national carriers like a JetBlue or a Velo, Breeze, some of the startups. What this means is that the first officers at the regionals are no longer upgrading to captain at the regionals. They are in fact just going directly to the other carriers. So the large regionals in the US, like Republic, like SkyWest, like Mesa, they have a dramatic imbalance in their number of first officers and the number of their captains. They do not have enough first officers agreeing to upgrade to captain on their own property. So what that means is they are now slowing down the hiring of first officers, and they're working really hard to entice their existing cadre to upgrade to captain or to hire street captains. The FAA requires that to upgrade from first officer to captain and to be a captain in a 121 carrier, the captain needs to have at least 1,000 hours of air carrier experience. That's typically found by flying as a first officer at one of these regionals. But importantly, Cape Air's service as a captain counts toward that 1,000 hours of air carrier time in a multi-engine aircraft. So Cape Air is working on a partnership and is on the cusp of being able to benefit from having dozens, if not hundreds, of first officers at a regional carrier who are not getting flight time, some of whom are literally being paid to sit at home because there are not captains with them to fly. We are working on having a regional carrier partner with us so that those first officers will come to Cape Air and fly as captains at Cape Air because they're qualified to do that, which could completely revolutionize Cape Air's captain situation. While that is still in the prospective stage at this point, we're quite far along with negotiations on making this happen. And it really does well align with the regional carrier, with Cape Air, and importantly with the captain, him or herself. And that could, I think, fundamentally transform where we are. It is possible that we're going to have captains starting here within the next couple of weeks in this program. So it is in fact potentially a near-term solution. So that's what we're doing on the strategic level on staff in our cockpits. But in the immediate short term, I want to acknowledge that we understand the data that Barry showed. There's not a different explanation for it other than it's not good. Matt, anything you want to add on this? And actually, I'd invite you to talk about the gate situation in Chicago, please.
Sure. An update on our facilities at Chicago O'Hare as part of a pre-planned airline shuffling at O'Hare. We anticipate in May of this year, we will be relocating our gate area currently at gate L11A over to the G concourse, most recently designated as G17. G17 lies in the middle of the American Airlines complex there at Chicago O'Hare and does offer us a more centralized gate that allows for easier connectivity between the carriers in the T1 through T3 complex. O'Hare has indicated that they will also resume a interterminal inside of security shuttle between the T1, T3 complex over to T5. So that will give our customers greater accessibility to T5 carriers that they're flying internationally or with Southwest Airlines or Delta, who's recently moved over to the T5 complex. We do not expect our counter area in Terminal 3 to change as a result of this gate relocation. This is part of the strategic move in which American is moving entirely into the L, or taking over the L concourse in addition to their current operation. And so we will be over there in that complex. I'm told we're given an option to possibly move again next year, but certainly this will give us the ability to offer seamless connections to some of our primary interline and codeshare partner there at Chicago.
Thanks, Matt. So I'm penning any questions. That concludes the notes that I wanted to go through with you, and so I'd turn it back over to you, Barry.
Well, the gate change sounds like a positive thing, but again, if we can't get there, it's a relevant point. So we've been struggling with this for well over a year now. When you started with us, we had tremendous success on reliability. What's the time frame you expect to have possibly the crews needed to operate here successfully? What,
Sure.
are you looking at a month, you looking at 2 months, you looking at a week? What's your expectations?
Sure. So there's two tracks on that. First is with Burlington, stopping service on March 31st. That's a fundamental game changer for the Chicago crew base with which you share your pilots right now. So that's one important date in this. And then I think we could have crew here from that strategic sourcing opportunity starting ground school here in the next week. And it would probably take 3 weeks realistically before they're actually online. These people are all fully unrestricted ATPs. So they're the highest quality rating there is. Don't have any names or specific dates yet, but that is indeed a near-term solution as well.
Have you guys given up on trying to get a crew based out of Manistee?
No, not at all. And I think I mentioned last time that we were looking at housing options. We continue to pursue that, particularly for the summer schedule when we need to go up to 4 pilots based there. I think I mentioned before that is an issue in our collective bargaining agreement with our Teamsters. They have asked to be based in Chicago, not in Manistee. So we're looking at what we can do economically to incentivize them on an individual basis to go outside the contract, which they're allowed to do by mutual agreement, to actually have them based in Manistee.
You had mentioned, I think last time, that you were doing a trial, maybe not trial, but your first use of housing incentivization.
Yep.
Was started somewhat recently. How has that been going, and is it accomplishing the desired results in that market?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Barry. So we have a robust operation in the Caribbean. It makes sense to base the aircraft and crew in the outstation of the small islands so that they can then fly into the hub in the morning. Very similar to your situation. We could not get pilots to go to Virgin Gorda in the British Virgin Islands, a very small island down there. Beautiful place to get sent, by the way, but we really struggled having people based there, and it really impacted the reliability last year. So this year, as Barry mentioned, we provided housing for the crew, and we put that in the union bid package that it would come with affordable housing, and it has completely revolutionized our reliability. We now have pilots based in the outstation. All they got to do is walk out their front door. It's like a mile to the airport, and it has absolutely revolutionized our service for Virgin Gorda. And it is based on that, Barry, that we are now looking at including housing in many of the markets where we've had a hard time getting crews to be based, particularly those who commute. You know, they might live in Florida where Cape Air doesn't fly, but are commuting to fly their schedule. If they've got a place where we can make it, really economical for them to be, and then they can actually live there and, be part of the community the way Cape Air used to be, we're very optimistic that that's going to really help. And Matt Reinhardt has taken on the mantle of finding this housing at the designated bases.
Other questions?
Anything else?
Well, I guess the only thing that comes to mind is, I don't know what can be said or not said in regard to the collapsed landing gear that happened a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so we did in fact have a nose gear collapse at O'Hare a couple weeks ago. I do not yet have anything that's worthwhile sharing. I can tell you that we don't think it's a systemic issue. We don't think that there needs to be any sort of fleet campaign or anything right now. But I don't have any sort of reports to share with you on that. Other than it was a 402, not a TECNAM. The gear on a TECNAM is down and welded, so that isn't an issue with the TECNAM.
I did note that.
Oh, no one else has any questions? I do have one, and it's kind of specific to recent events with cancellations. earlier this month and the previous bout, I think in January as well, with regards to the spare aircraft being a 402 here and a crew not, trying to think of the right words to say, but a crew unwilling to fly that aircraft. I'll leave it at that. And I know that that got some very serious attention about a week ago, and I know that pilot is, what I've heard is that pilot is no longer certified to fly a 402 aircraft. Does that mean we will not have a 402 here as a spare, so that if we do have a future mechanical here, that we will have a spare aircraft that that pilot can fly?
Sure. So a couple of things that you touched on there. As you well know, we need to be careful about personnel issues. So I will stay away from that, but specifically talk about aircraft sparing. Our intention is to have the Manistee flights be all TECNAM, and we now have the ability to spare TECNAM aircraft there, which materially simplifies our maintenance infrastructure and our crew training. As we have been working hard to get more captains out on the line, it has not been effective to dual train captains in both the TECNAM and the 402, because that just simply takes longer with pilots in the schoolhouse when we need them on the line. So we have been sending pilots to the Midwest that are TECNAM only trained, because that's the direction that the fleet's going anyway. So we've really been investing in that fleet. What we need to do to provide reliable flights is have TECNAMs that are airworthy, ready to go, with high dispatch reliability. And then you need a spare aircraft for the inevitable flat tire or bird strike or, any of the items that just come with running an airline. So our intention is to spare TECNAMs for Manistee, both at Manistee and to the extent we can now with the gate move in Chicago as well, so that the pilot can pick up the aircraft wherever he or she needs to. Sparing with 402s inevitably creates crew issues, and it's just harder to maintain two separate flights. So we really need to get over the fence of just sparing with TECNAMs.
And are we there yet or not? Because right now we do have a spare TECNAM. I'm just wondering if that will be, last week's 402 will be the last one we'll have seen.
Yeah, no, I wish I could say it was. We are using TDY to help support the operation, and some of those captains that are TDYing, they may not be qualified in the TECNAM yet. So when we have TDY here, we may still have to run 402s. We're trying to get TECNAM qualified captains to do the TDY, but when you're, sometimes you end up having to put a 402 here.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you so much.
What I would like to do for Jerry, who I think I still can't see, Jerry, I'd like
He's
you to.
sitting in the corner, so yes.
Yeah, no problem. I do want to make myself available to you. It breaks my heart to hear what you said about the experience you had. That is not the kind of Cape Air service that you deserve and that we want to offer. It's no fun running an unreliable airline. So I'm genuinely sorry about that. And I would ask, Barry, if you could please provide my contact information to Jerry at the end of this. And Jerry, I'd invite you to give me a call if you'd like.
We'll do that. That actually then reminds me that at the last meeting, we were trying to come up with a schedule of when we wanted these updates. There was a discussion that maybe we wanted monthly, maybe quarterly was enough. Mm-hmm. Since we have all the parties here, when would we like to get our next update from Cape Air?
I'd run with 3 months. You have enough time to hopefully accomplish some of your goals that you want to set. I'd rather see you spend more time trying to accomplish them than preparing for a airport authority meeting, if you will.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. I don't mind visiting with you guys as much as you want, but at the end of the day, my talking with you isn't really going to solve the problem. We have a fire here to fix this. We just need to go do it. We know how to run reliable service. We've not been doing that yet. I want you to know, I'm carrying the torch on this. We want to provide reliable service. It's something we can do. We've demonstrated it at moments of brilliance at Manistee. And we're going to show up on one of these Zooms together. And we're going to have just had, multiple weeks, if not months, of very, very reliable service. And the tenor of this meeting will be very different. I know we can get there. So I appreciate everybody working with us while we're working through this difficulty right now.
Fixing the problems, admitting you have one, and you've definitely done that, so thank you.
Now we got to execute.
Thank you so much, Andrew. We'll see you in a few months.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, we have a lot of committee action to deal with. And we can start with the executive committee. We have 3 contracts we have to approve today. Let's see, the first one, should we go in the order that they're listed here? Okay.
Whatever you would prefer.
The airport director agreement. Everyone was sent a copy of that. Take me a second to pull mine back up here. But it did go through the committee, and there were no objections to this contract. This is something that's actually retroactive back to October 31st, I believe. October 1st.
Fiscal year.
Right. And so we're getting that taken care of now.
I have one question, and I know Karen's not here, but I know the increase was, I guess, tied back in. Barry, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. So the 6% came from what they were estimating that the county was looking to do?
That is what was budgeted, so that's the amount that was in the budget.
Okay, so, and I see that in the airport directors and the, I think it's part 158
Yep.
or 9.
139.
139, sorry.
You're good.
So that's 6%. But then in the office space rental, it's only a 2.8% increase. I'm just wondering what the logic is there as far as the 6 and the 6, which I get, and it's probably, in my opinion, a little low based off of where inflation's at. But I just
Although
don't
it is higher than other county staff, so.
I'm just wondering where the logic is that that's at 6%, but the office space increases at 2.8.
Well, the office rental reflects the rental rates that the board approved in July, incorporating the current rates into the agreement. And I'm trying to think, there was a whole set of, basically, the board in July approved, or maybe it was June, sometime in the summer, updating all of our fees, from hangar rents to office rents to flow fees. So this is just incorporating that current rate, and the board adopted at that time a fiscal year 23 rate, as well as, I think, a fiscal year 24 rate.
I always miss the June meeting, I'm always in June.
So I'm
just trying to figure out the logic of the 6% increase in 2 of the contracts and the 2.8% in the third one.
Well, we haven't done a 6% across the board anywhere.
3.
Last year, 3 contracts at the moment. We'll be negotiating, but.
I do have a question. Am I allowed to ask questions? I don't know what my role is.
You're a treasurer.
So, it's already February, right? So we're gonna retroact back to October, right? The agreement's through, what, September of 2023? So then we're gonna be in the same situation. Why don't you do a longer contract than a year? How about 2 years? So we don't always have to go retro back 5-6 months. And then now we're actually at the point where next month we should be discussing these items for the next budget
At
year.
least one of them was for 2 months, wasn't it?
2 years.
No, they all went back to 1 year.
One of them was a 2-year.
I mean, most of the contracts we do at the county are at least for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, there was one that we had talked about, and then we
So-
decided to
So
go.
I'll, as the recipient of the
Mhm.
contracts, I requested, because this was talked about,
Mhm.
when the committee met, I requested a year just because of the uncertainty around what the inflation rate is going to be.
Well, could you
Year.
look at doing a 2-year with, 3% each year, because that seems to be the norm, and then you can reopen that if it's higher than that and have the board adjust that, and then that would be retroactive back.
But if you're going to renegotiate halfway through, why not? The problem, though, is that the board needs to pick this up before January
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
opposed to,
I recommend June when I'm not here.
but that was
Okay.
based on my request.
Yeah, I will say that, yeah, that's on my radar screen to get on
Okay.
this early, because I
Earlier.
don't want to go across that
Right.
deadline.
Because really, that should be
next
voted
year.
on in September, so it takes effect October 1st.
Should-
Right.
Mhm.
And this is just my second meeting in this role.
You're good.
I didn't
You're
even know
good.
these contracts
You're
existed
good.
a few months ago.
You're good.
Because they were last approved in December, which was the month before you came to
Right.
board. So-
The name, the signature on there was a name I didn't even recognize. But yes, I hear what you're saying, I agree.
I do want to point out, though, that, I mean, for the, one we're looking at right now, it's basically changing dates and changing that rate. But there is one other change that, is in here, and I don't know if people noticed it or not. It's in the paragraph that talks about, my spending authority limits. 3 to 5,000. That has been 3,000 for the 15 years I've been here, and there are months where our electric utilities come close to that, and this would say that I don't even have the authority to approve standard expenses. So I wanted to bump that up a little bit, but I did want to make sure that everyone realized that there is a other change that's in here.
What people are charging for things right now, I'm surprised you can even get fuel or maintain your truck at a
Right.
Ford product.
Pretty much everything else, the board ends up approving because it's
Beyond the limitations.
beyond the limit, so.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else? Do I hear a motion to approve this contract?
Motion to approve the contract with the caveat that, I agree with your point, that it needs to be taken up sooner, and I'm sure with you there now it will, but I remember when I first came on this board, I think you were actually operating under an expired contract that had
There's a
expired.
number of years.
Yeah.
Trying to do better.
I'll support that.
Okay, and we do need a roll call, I believe, for that one.
Correct.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Manistee? Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Lasky? Mr. Daunt?
Yes.
Okay, and the next thing is the FBO agreement. That's for Orchard Beach. And anyone, have questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve as recommended.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
And roll call.
Mr. Gentili? Ms. Goodman? Ms. Kaminsky, Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Lasky? Mr. Daunt?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
And on to the, FAA. To the, Part 139. Here we go. Questions, comments?
Last time, Barry, and I'm assuming it got done, but in this agreement, it talks about the additional insured and the coverages and stuff. Has that ever been shown to the board or validated?
It hasn't been shown to the board, but
I'd just like to actually see that the coverage is there and that we're named as additional insured.
No. Anyone else? I would entertain a motion to support this contract.
Motion to approve this contract?
I'll support that.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Lasky, Mr. Daunt,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Goodman, Ms. Kaminsky.
That moves us on to the Capital Projects Committee, and we have 4, I believe, recommendations.
we have 4 recommendations from the committee, but we also have 2 other sets of bids to present to the board if
Okay.
they wanted to present them without full committee.
Sure. All right, do you have those?
I do have things queued up.
Yeah, let's do that.
Which one would you like first?
Whatever order you have them queued up in.
So for the T-hanger roof, this was probably, the most interesting we had. Because it was a very wide range of, bids. Because we didn't necessarily provide strict guidance saying bid exactly this, because we wanted to tap into their expertise as to what they would recommend or what they'd be comfortable doing. So we ended up with 3 bids, one from Bucks Exteriors, one from Story Roofing, and then a third one from Plank Roofing. And actually the one from Plank has come in since the committee looked at this. So there is a little bit additional information for the board that the committee did not have. Bucks Exteriors is the low bid and the committee's recommended option. And that is essentially doing what we had anticipated doing, which was basically sealing, priming, and applying a material paint, I'll call it, that's meant to seal and basically provide a watertight seal for a metal roof like we have. And that's what they provided. The other 2 bids come in much higher, ranging from 65, 86 to 94, and those are all for basically a complete re-roofing, so basically tearing off the current roof and replacing it, because they were not comfortable with doing a painting job as part of the services they offer. We started by talking to painters, and the painters basically said, talk to roofers, and then I think when we talked to roofers, some of the roofers basically felt that that was out of their wheelhouse, so it kind of went back and forth. When the committee talked about this, one of the things they had us go back and do was to talk to Bucks on basically what sort of expected lifespan this would have. And the answer was that they would guarantee a 5-year, but they would expect 10 to 15 years of life for the treatment they're providing, for that, 21,000. So for basically a third of the cost, let's take the lower end of that expected lifespan of 10 years, we can accomplish getting something for 10 years versus the expenditure that's 3 to 4 times as much. That will certainly give us a longer lifespan. But if you take 10 years and multiply by 3 or 4, you're talking 30 to 40 years, which is probably in the lifespan of those products as well. So from an overall utilizing our cash sufficiently, we felt that we're getting the same amount of years per dollar spent by going with the smaller dollar expenditure at this point. Did I
We talked about,
say all that correctly?
yeah, oh, it was,
And you
yeah.
can add whatever you want.
Yeah, we talked about the fact that we're still talking about an old building underneath all of that. So you're talking about nearly $100,000 new roof on an old frame. I'm not sure that, I don't think we ever really got too serious about that once we saw those numbers and thought about what it was actually going on top of.
Well, the intent is to try to get the T-hangers solid enough to actually rent them out.
Yeah.
If we demonstrate that we can do that, then maybe you can demonstrate
Yeah, we can-
the need for the next step.
Yeah, and that might be just building new hangars at some point, if the need is there. But that was it.
Because again, those hangars right now are about 70 years old. They were
That'd be
built,
about right.
they were built before we had commercial service, and we've had commercial service for 60 years, so 60-plus years.
The early days.
Yeah.
So it's steel, so it is expected to have a long lifespan. But, adding another 10 years, we're talking an 80-year time frame. At some point, we are going to want to contemplate, assuming there's demand, something a little bit more modern. So that's the committee's recommendation on, this item.
What's the process for getting the bids?
We basically just started calling around.
So it doesn't get published, the county doesn't have any rules, or the airport doesn't have to follow any publication rules?
When we asked the county, Lisa, the answer was no, there is no formal process, just to try to get multiple bids.
We put out requests for product all the time, but this is somewhat unique as well. Of course, it's a building, when it's all said and done, whether it's an airport or.
Yeah. And there were a lot of bids that went out beyond what we're seeing here. Some of the roofers came back and just said, we're shingle guys. And that was out of their wheelhouse.
Maybe they just declined now, just because the vendor that does all of our roof repairs isn't listed, so I just didn't know if they didn't respond, or...
I don't know. You have a metal roof?
Hmm?
You have a metal roof?
We have all types of roofs, and they all leak, so... they're constantly there.
Are you recommending
I
that?
was gonna say, by all means, let's get his phone number.
All I can tell you is that, I was on a Teams meeting with, our board and, a bunch of people, and I had to apologize because all of a sudden, I guess it was last Thursday when the storm came through, water started rushing in behind me down but they were right there.
Huh?
Keeps the roofers busy.
Yep.
Yeah.
But, I can tell you that my maintenance team's very happy with them, but, part of the problem is we're dealing with a 23-year-old roof that its expected lifespan is 20,
Mm-hmm, yeah.
but it's $3.4 million to replace it. And that's not the metal roof, that's just the flat roof. But, I just didn't know if they're very responsive, I'll give them credit for that.
Great, anything else?
You need
I do need a motion to approve the
Bucks exterior
Yeah.
bid. I will make that motion to approve the Bucks exterior roofing bid for the T-hanger renovation.
Last question, sorry.
Yeah.
Bucks local?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second.
We need a roll call for that.
Never heard of Bucks.
Okay, let's do a roll call on that one.
Okay, Mr. Don?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman? Ms. Kaminsky? Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Lasky?
So the next one, in the order that I'm going down the list, is one that the committee did not make a recommendation on because we did not have, all the bids came in essentially after our last committee meeting. So on this one, we were struggling to get anyone to respond to us. We had one that didn't even end up submitting a bid, said that they were booked out at least a year, if not 18 months, before they could even contemplate doing a project like this. So Karen Goodman, who's on the committee, recommended this second person. Central Wellness has used them in the past. And the other recommendation from the committee was to talk to Ludington Paint and Glass and find out who they would recommend. So we reached out to them, and through them, we got the other two bids to come in. So this is something that has not gone through the committee. If the board would want to defer this and let the committee meet and talk about this first and come back with a recommendation, or the board could take action now if they wanted.
Understand, this is just for the, building itself, not the doors. The doors are a whole separate item, and that's, what, about a year out? Because that's a federal
Yes.
grant for that. So this will be the end caps that you see as you're driving down the road, and just the,
So obviously the
about
roof,
a third
we
or
just-
something.
we just approved, so that's taken care
Yeah,
of.
that, but,
And on the sides, it is 2/3 of each side is door panels. And again, those are gonna be replaced with new panels. And then there's a third that is metal that is actually part of the building. So it's plus then the end caps, as you said. So when you look at it, that structure, it's a little bit more than 1/3 of that exterior is what this is covering.
not knowing any more about it than what I'm seeing right here, I don't see any reason why we would not go with Shinsky. But that's just a off-the-cuff remark. And we're talking about a pretty old building out there.
Was there a timeline they gave you, like 3 months, 6 months, tomorrow, next week?
The expectation on all of these would be by this fall. There was a,
They're not painting right now, I can tell you that.
Yeah. But we had a number of bids come in 2 years out, 2-year waiting list. And, I'm finally at the end of a waiting list to get my house worked on. So I know how long it takes to get those guys.
Well, since we're not painting today, why don't we ask to see what's the time frame for any one of these to accomplish and address at next board meeting?
So we can have another committee meeting, sometime between.
okay.
Well, it'd just be a few phone calls and report back. I mean, I don't know if you have to assemble a committee to say, let's make some phone calls.
I will tell you this, I don't know the exact square footage or linear footage that you're looking to paint, but
That's not much money.
no, because I've just been sticker shock for the last year and a half with the quotes we're getting. We just repainted the bayou pool, and it was ridiculous what we had to pay for that.
And hopefully we
A
don't.
lot more than this, and that was just painting the pool area.
Yeah. And some trouble getting different colors too, as I recall. Last time we talked red paint or something.
That was for the exterior, that was the, concrete that got redone. They couldn't find the red paint that was required for the fire lane.
Okay, so that's going back to the committee then.
Okay. And moving on to our mower deck, referred to as a brush hog, but we've learned through this process that brush hog is actually a trademarked name for a specific brand of mower deck, so.
Actually, that's bush hog.
I was gonna say,
Bush
down
hog, yeah,
south, we
bush
always
hog,
said bush
yes.
hog.
Yes. So, yeah, we butcher it and confuse people as we were talking.
At least you weren't violating their trademark.
So on this, the three bids we got were from Freeman Creek south of town, West Coast Farm Supply north of town, and Gillison's a little bit farther north. And the committee's recommendation is for the West Coast Farm Supply Rhino 3150. So it is not the low bid in this case. It is not the high bid either. It's in the middle. The rationale for that is in the research on these, first off, the two brands, Rhino versus Woods. The Rhino is generally considered within the industry to be a higher quality, more durable product. So that was kind of the reason that the Woods basically wasn't considered looking to buy something that's going to last 20 to 30 years like the current one that we have has lasted. Then you'll see on the Freeman Creek bid, that is for a 2510 versus the West Coast Farm Supply 3150. Other than that, pretty much the specs are the same, the 3150 being a heavier duty model of that 15-foot spec Rhino. One of the issues we've had with our current mower deck is that when we got our new tractor has significantly more horsepower than our old tractor. And since we've got our new tractor, we have, I'd say frequently, but probably on the order of once a year, burned out the clutch because the tractor is more powerful than the mower deck can handle. So basically it can provide more power to it than the mower deck is really capable of receiving. And West Coast Farm Supply, who's fixing our mower deck, that is the reason they spec'd that particular model, because it matches better the horsepower output of our tractor. That theoretically less maintenance should be necessary going forward.
Okay, so I'm looking at, my columns over there. We got Grant 2,
Yep.
105,000. You got, West Coast Mower for 39. I'm gonna save, a little bit of fuel, because I'm gonna get an extra 5-foot cut. It's gonna probably cost me a touch more fuel, but my savings is probably there with the additional 5 foot. I would probably more opt to the 20-foot flex, because you got enough horsepower to run it.
Our concern on that is where we will store it because of that extra width.
Well, it's flex wing.
Yes, it is flex wing, but it is still gonna be a little bit wider, than the 15-foot. So I'm not gonna say not to spend more money, but that we were comfortable with 15-foot. It's what we use now, and it accomplishes our needs.
Is the one you have now flex?
Yes.
Does it flex in half, or does it have 2 wings?
2 wings.
Since these aren't apples to apples, did we go back to Freeman and ask them what their quote on the 3150 would be?
We did not, no.
Since we're under, should we at least do that to find out what their price for the 3150 would be, or are they not capable of getting a 3150?
Don't know.
I think if they're selling a Rhino, they'd be able to get it as well.
I would just be curious to see what their price on that model. I get your explanation on why you want the heavier model, but I think we should have apples to apples bids.
If that makes sense, and we can bring that back next meeting.
Yep. Okay.
And put the tape measure to see if the 20-footer will fit into the,
Okay, yep, we can get that answer
I
too.
asked him for that bid,
say that again?
asked Freeman for that bid too.
Yeah?
West Coast is one of our,
Yeah,
we spend so much damn money with them, I went through
Really?
the golf course and all of
Yeah.
our equipment. It's constantly running up there. Guys,
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, again, something that the committee has reviewed, had a recommendation, but another bid has come in since, the committee met, so I'll explain where we are on this. So last month, the board approved the purchase of the new pickup, and this is then for the plow, snowplow to attach to it. The pickup was ordered pre-configured to accept a snowplow, so it's just a matter of basically attaching, snowplow. So the committee's recommendation was to go with the, TC plows, the Boss, because the Boss plow is what Chrysler designs their connection for, so it is theoretically the easiest, to attach and unattach. So the committee felt that that convenience, was justified in the higher price.
Well, we were really looking at it, if it was easier, they were less likely to, damage it.
Do something wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
West Coast Equipment, again, who does all of our maintenance, came in with a later bid, which is now the lowest bid, and they've assured us that, this will not be, the Snow X will not be any more difficult to attach, and they will train us and do everything, to set it up initially, and they've now come in with a lower bid. So the committee's recommendation was one, with the additional information that might be reevaluated. And we could send this back to the committee to come back with a new recommendation based on this new information, or the board could take action based on the information they have.
No, shame on me, but I've never heard of Snow X. Boss generally is, no, Bosch or Fisher tends to be heavier duty plows. If one up there said Fisher, I'd say that'd be a good plow as well. Western, okay, but
file in the front of my sedan, so I have no, out of my league here.
never heard of the bottom one either.
We did spend a good bit of time talking about this, and, the recommendation of the guys down at Chrysler said, that was the equipment that their people enjoyed working with the most. You know, the difference in, the cost difference wasn't much, and we talked to the guys here that would actually be using it, and they were okay with it as well, which is,
All I can tell you is the two landscaping companies that we've used in all the years I've been here all have Boss plows on the front of their trucks.
there you go.
So I'm assuming that falls under the number two, the 105,000.
Yep.
So if we went with the 39, and how much was the truck? 50?
Yep.
So what did that leave for so then you also have the third, which is the lift?
Right. So that-
We haven't even talked about that
Right.
yet.
So that would leave us about $6,000 left in, $7,000 left in that category.
Yeah, I'm a numbers girl, sorry.
Oh, that's great.
Just lost your 5 foot extra.
well, we haven't come anywhere near under grant one either.
Right, and when the committee has talked about this, I think we probably decided that we have some flexibility in moving things between
We do have
categories.
flexibility to move between categories.
So, we
That's what we do with numbers.
We weren't
But I'm just saying, you know, we do
overly
have the
concerned,
numbers we
but-
have to keep with.
With the recommendations, we felt that there was still funds left in that category.
What's the typical cost of the lift?
We haven't designed it.
We don't know.
What's the lift for?
It's, if you walk through the terminal, you'll see with the high ceiling,
Oh, okay.
we need, and then parking lot lights. So at least once, if not twice a year, we need to rent a lift to fix those issues, and over time, that has added up in cost.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's put the boss on.
Got a motion?
I'll make a motion to, accept the bid from TC Plows for the boss for not to exceed 8,500.
We have a second on that?
Yeah, I would second that.
Okay.
Cause I have
Yep.
a
Go right
attorney
ahead.
guy coming over, so I don't wanna miss that.
Oh, don't.
Oh.
I have an appointment with one of those too.
Don't worry. So if you need my information, Jeff can hopefully get you
Yep.
my name and phone number and all that, so thanks for letting me.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Do my opinion, we'll see you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Ms. Goodman? Ms. Kaminsky? Mr. Egan?
Yes.
Lasky? Mr. Don?
Yes.
Okay, next one is interesting, I'll say that.
Mhm.
So this is, it started as basically to evaluate our automatic doors, because the maintenance costs on them have been going up. Used to be, we needed a service call once every couple of years, and now we're at multiple times per year. So the AES who installed the doors and does that maintenance, brought them out to ask their opinion, and their opinion is that our doors are fine. However, they're no longer supported from the components that they contain. So basically, the motherboard and controllers are now 15 years old and are no longer supported. We've already had 2 sets of doors replaced and upgraded with newer controllers and motherboards. And so their recommendation was not to replace the doors, but to go through and basically upgrade their components to something that is supported and available. So that is the quote for that. We did not, at that point, then go and look for other quotes, since the project wasn't to replace doors, it was really just to essentially do enhanced maintenance, if that's a thing in that regard. So that's the loan bid that we have on the doors themselves. But as we were then talking about this and not knowing how the security card readers integrate into the doors, I made the assumption that they were all part and parcel, and they're completely different companies and.
Ridiculously expensive.
So that then took us down the path where we ended up getting 3 bids on basically our card readers. And Allen Supply is who originally installed them. They didn't even want to come out and look at it. They just went off of their drawings from what they installed 15 years ago. And note that their bid is not twice as much as the others, but close to twice as much. And that doesn't even include pulling cable to all of the doors. They didn't want to even touch that. They just, basically, that's just pretty much equipment and installing equipment. what I read into that, they really didn't want to do this job and, but gave us a number that they would be happy to do it if we were to accept that. We then also reached out to EPS and TKS, and those are the two bidders who responded to our security camera, project a year or so ago. And at that time, we accepted TKS's bid for our security cameras, EPS's, and the situation there was similar to this, is TKS was slightly more expensive initially, but EPS has a significant monthly fee, in perpetuity that ultimately gets added on. And for the security camera system, we went with TKS because the long-term cost of TKS was less than EPS. And that's basically the same situation here, is at $200 a month, roughly $2,500 a year. In 2 years, you're basically at break even between the two, and then beyond 2 years, it becomes more cost effective. So, and also since TKS is already a supplier for one system in the building, having them be available for another also kind of made sense. So the committee's recommendation was to go with the TKS bid for the security cameras and to engage AES to upgrade the door hardware so that it is maintainable. Anything you want to add, Mike?
No, that's, that just really put it in a nutshell. This system we have now is just ancient. And, I mean, we've all heard well, you haven't heard the story of how these things are actually activated. I mean, it's almost worth hearing.
These are all the doors around here?
Yeah. They're not networked together, so they're each standalone readers, and you have to use a device to download the data. That device is an old 15-year-old HP PDA, before smartphones. That's the equipment you need, and the software that it runs on only runs on Windows XP, so I have to keep a virtual machine around that's running 15-year-old Windows software so that I can maintain them. Then every time something changes, I have to go to each door individually and program it. This is for a more modern system that's networked together and eliminates those.
And we haven't had any problems with the TKS security stuff, right? I mean, it's all been good and.
Yeah.
Any other?
We haven't had them out here.
I would say I don't
At
think
all.
he has since his day.
Entertain a motion?
Sounds like it's time to upgrade, yes.
Yeah.
Is that a motion, George?
Is that a motion?
Motion
All right,
to go
there it is.
with this, yes.
Second.
And that was for TKS.
Yes,
TKS.
and uniform, everything up here.
Yeah.
Are we doing two separate motions, or is it one motion to do TKS and the hardware, or did we already do the hardware?
We have not, I would recommend we do 2 separate motions.
Mhm.
They are 2 different vendors.
Mhm.
Can I get these from you, please? That just makes life a lot easier. Thank you.
So there's a motion for TKS.
We have
for
a
the-
motion and a second on that.
Okay, Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Ms. Goodman, Ms. Kaminsky, Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Lasky, Mr. Daunt,
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes. Yeah, just only a motion to do the EAS to keep it all together.
Yeah. Is this inclusive of the automatic doors, or is this just all your other doors?
It's all of the automatic doors.
Does the new hardware and everything come with any sort of warranty or maintenance agreement for the first year or two?
I do not know the answer to that in a definitive manner. My assumption would be yes, but, can't 100% say I've seen that or heard that.
And that's something we're gonna have to worry about budgeting for, because there's, usually the first year will be included, and then after that, there's a annual fee for the ongoing maintenance. Second.
Well, with AES, since they are our current vendor for the doors, we are not under a annual
Maintenance.
contract, but it's a time and materials call out. So they're coming from a distance, so there's a lot of time for them.
I know, rather than just, we're on parts and material on certain things, but they also come out twice a year just to do inspections, and all that's part of the package. Then that way, they're actually, their standard parts are actually included, so I don't know whether it's worthwhile, but if you're not using them and they're not coming up, then you're not incurring the expenses. Just cars get a lot more usage, so we just have an annual package covering them.
Mm-hmm. That is something we could investigate. I'm sure they'd be happy to put something on that. That would be on top of this.
Anything else? Okay.
Was there a second?
Yeah, we had
Mr. Egan?
yes.
Ms. Lasky? Mr. Daunt?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Gentili?
Yes.
Mr. Goodman? Ms. Kaminsky?
Okay, and then last, carpeting. So, we've got two bids on carpeting, one from Hagelin's local, and then, Commissioner Carpenter of Traverse City. And Hagelin's is the least expensive quote on that, and we've actually gone around with Hagelin's for a bit, because they originally quoted less expensive than this. And then when we were going through our lease contract with TSA, technically General Services Administration, GSA, they actually specify what the carpeting has to be, and Hagelin's did not meet their specifications. So we went back to Hagelin's, they upgraded it to a higher quality commercial product, and this is that revised bid that the GSA specifications still comes in less expensive than the other bid. So this is...
She has a question for you about the fuel farm quotes.
So this is one that the committee has not reviewed, because we did not have all of these bids tied up the last time they met.
Where's all this carpeting from, out there?
It is basically the bathroom area, which is stained, and really can't get it clean anymore. The front desk is completely worn. My office, which again is worn, and then TSA offices. So it's basically where, it's the highest traffic areas. Our hope is that we can then, since it's all carpet squares, that we can recover usable carpet squares, then use as patching for other areas. Because somewhere over the last 15 years, our supply of spare carpet tiles has disappeared. I don't know if it got damaged, water damaged, and thrown out, but it's MIA.
But these are the original carpets in this building, aren't they?
Yes, yes. And in like this room, which doesn't get much use, they should last another 15 years.
Sure.
I'll make a motion to accept the bid from Hagelin's. $1,365.
Yeah.
Just get her question answered.
Just messing with you. We wanna know how
Okay.
much number one was under your grant number
We
3.
just spent $40,000 on the doors, now you're spending this, so she wants to know, do you have enough left?
We have no idea, and that item is
No idea, that's
really-
why it's blank.
Because the lift is gonna be, I just did a quick search, the lift is gonna cost you between 13 to 16 grand, not counting delivery.
Aren't you glad I came today?
Always.
Yeah.
I like numbers, people.
Mhm.
We have no
We have
idea
a-
what kind of updates are needed at the fuel farm, or?
We haven't been able to get the vendor out here, and that's really just it's, what I'll say is it's a placeholder, because we know that equipment is old, and it's really getting them out here to say,
You got
this is
35
what you
grand
need
left.
to do. We should have some extra out of grant 1, too.
You're
A
using
lot.
for his 5-foot extra.
I only needed
You
10.
had 20 grand over there, Mr. Don,
Figure go home.
right? Mhm.
Hence the boss.
We have a motion on the floor for the Haglund's carpet. Do we have a second for that?
I will second it as long as we have, probably don't need many upgrades to the fuel farm, I hope.
All good. All good. Okay.
I'm just wondering, what's more of a concern? What's the, I understand that the TSA people won't wear slippers and they need soft carpet to walk on, but if the fuel farm's a problem, then where do we
The
go?
fuel farm has been a major problem.
Yep,
If we don't replace the carpeting in TSA, we will be in violation of our lease.
even get them slippers or something, like Dr. Scholl's.
But the Haglunds is good enough, didn't you say it has to be commercial for the?
That was their upgraded commercial.
Oh, that is their-
Revised.
That satisfies the GSA,
Okay.
which is very important.
I know,
So,
yeah.
my last question, and
My
I'm sorry
brother
that
works
this
for
is,
them in Chicago, they're picky.
I probably shouldn't do this on the record, but when I need carpet, can I have you ask them for the bids from now on? Because this is much cheaper than the bids. I must be getting the casino rate.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
Could be.
We need to do the roll call yet?
Yes, please.
Mr. Dunt,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes,
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Ms. Goodman, Ms. Kaminsky, Mr. Egan.
Yes.
Ms. Lass.
Yeah, we haven't had a meeting where we've had to approve a lot of things, and then it all came together
Yeah.
to this meeting, so.
Yeah.
So that's the last of those, so, and we've kind of already talked about the items that are outstanding, for the review.
Okay. I think
We're
that
up to my
takes us
report.
to you, yes.
Okay, this is relatively short because Cape Air already talked, and so I don't really have to add anything to what they've already said. So we've already talked about the landing gear failure incident in O'Hare. I'll add, since Cape Air was very non-committal on that, that what I've heard is that the plane landed, and then as they were taxiing is when that happened. So it wasn't like immediately the impact of the landing, it was somewhat delayed. So, and again, there were, no injuries, no one, really that inconvenienced, but it did make the news in Chicago,
Close the runway for 2 hours.
so.
You know, I tried to, send you a text, because got a screenshot of the news article sent to me, and I guess when something like that happens, board needs to get notified. I mean, just go par for the course, and, but when I tried to text you, it didn't go through.
Yeah.
But I was over there, so, anyway.
And I would tell you, I wish I had the answer you just gave me, because the feedback I was getting from people that I guess are locals that work over where I work, they were all telling me that it was a rough landing and not to fly here anymore because the front wheel fell off the plane. I said, well, I find that hard to believe.
And hopefully, nothing like this ever happens again.
If it was something that happened here, I definitely would have, because it wasn't here, I was a little bit more on, and I was trying to get more information from Cape Air, and as you saw today, they are not forthcoming with a lot of details, so.
All that stuff's gonna be tight-lipped until they get the
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
FAA gives them their
yeah, no,
final.
I understand.
USB, you have to do.
Oh, yeah, that'll take months.
Next item, I've mentioned that Cape Air has been hiring for their station manager. They have hired, a person, Jason Decker. He's still waiting on a start date. He had a scheduled vacation early this month, so, and now he's waiting on his background checks to come through before he can actually start. So I'm expecting him to start in that position before the end of this month, but, so there are some things that are out of their control as they're waiting for things to come back. For the Cape Air hangar, the hangar they lease, the gas line has been run. There is no gas meter installed. The update I got this morning on this from DTE was, well, didn't you see the next steps we sent you after the gas line was installed? It's like, no, we never received anything. So apparently there's a checklist of next steps that we haven't gotten yet as to, I don't know, what we're supposed to do to get the gas meter installed. But their original, CTE's original estimate of when this would be completed was the end of this month. So we're still on that schedule, but apparently we're missing some information. And then the Winter MDOT Airport Conference in Lansing is this week, and I will be there on Wednesday and Thursday. Kind of already reviewed this, but I will quickly just focus a little bit more on the enplanements. So we were at 406, so slightly down from last year. Given that our cancellation rate was 4% higher, you know, that really was about a flat January to January. Advanced bookings are trending very strong. As of February 1st, looking out for February, March, and April, we're running better than 50% ahead of a year ago in those months. So advanced bookings are trending very favorably for us. I've already talked about the performance, so I won't go into that. So on the airfare report for the month, so this is as of last week, looking at travel next month. What I find interesting is that pretty much across the board, fares have jumped significantly from last month to this month, on average of $100+ across pretty much all of the markets. The average out of Manistee falls in line where it typically does. I mean, slightly less than Traverse City, slightly more than Grand Rapids, and, you know, Muskegon and Traverse City are close to each other this month, which hasn't been the case. And therefore, with that, Grand Rapids is the cheapest out of most markets, with a handful coming out of the others.
Any feedback on how people are receiving the 9-seat flights out of Muskegon yet, or?
It's something I didn't put in my report, but now that you mention it, it's probably something I should have. So I met with the new Muskegon manager, and we had a very interesting conversation, and actually he brought along the chair of, they're a pure county airport, so the board that approves everything for them is the county board. So they have a separate advisory committee that doesn't have any authority, but kind of is there to kind of provide advice to the county board, who may not understand the aviation specific much. So he brought along his chair of his advisory committee as well, and we spent probably 2 hours talking, planning on getting together a conference later this week. And basically what I'll say is, he made Cape Air look good. Their cancellation, well, first off, their award for service is 6 flights a day. Southern is only scheduling and operating 4. And of those 4, they are canceling more than 50%. Looking at enplanement numbers for the months of October and November, Muskegon had the lowest enplanements in the state of Michigan. Ironwood was second lowest, and we were third. And traditionally, we're the lowest. So we've actually been moving up while others have been moving down. I'm curious, hopefully the Ironwood manager will be there, because they actually have jet service, both Chicago and Minneapolis. So I'm really shocked that their numbers are below ours in November. As of last week, the December numbers weren't in from all the airports yet, so I don't have December numbers. So they are very unhappy with Southern. The community is reacting very negatively, especially the business community. They were trying to entice with a more business-friendly schedule, because that was their biggest complaint with SkyWest, is SkyWest did not overnight aircraft there. They just had 2 midday turns. So the business traveler couldn't get an early morning flight out to get any place. So the approval process went for Southern's bid, because that gave them an early morning departure. But so that's what I know there.
Parking fees, I'm assuming that's just outdoor parking?
Yes, so.
Grand Rapids is
Well,
now $21 a day.
I was gonna say, in Grand Rapids, it's kind of, it's not their economy lot parking. It's,
I think the economy lot is like 18, it's insane.
And
It's 11,
It's 11 for the economy lot?
yeah.
yeah,
That's priced out at 15.
right.
Like,
So
I
this is their outdoor lot that's near the parking garage. They've got like 3 or 4 different tiers of rates for.
I just know that January 1st, they raised the parking garage to $21 a day.
Okay, and I probably need to look at this again, but, I didn't go with the cheapest Grand Rapids, but I also didn't go with the most expensive, whereas the others, those are the only options you have for Traverse City.
Yeah, the economy lot's $11.
You gotta time that bus well to use that.
Or midnight. Only know, 'cause I'm leaving tomorrow.
Okay, so that's airfares. On capital projects, the only update I have is that we're still waiting on the state's review of our ALP update that has been on their desk now for about 6 months. I will be asking next week on that, this is just the table that shows the last 6 months of cancellations, which we already talked about. One quick marketing update is that we're gonna be rolling out next week, really our first joint airport Cape Air kind of marketing campaign. Cape Air is providing some free tickets, and we're doing giveaway. We're gonna be promoting that through our email and Facebook channels. Cape Air is gonna be promoting that on local radio, and the goal is just try to bring some attention for late winter, early spring period, and trying to get some more local attention. We feel that, knock on wood, some of the worst is behind us with the cancellations. I feel better, not necessarily based on what I heard today, but just on recent performance. Although the one issue that I raised that couldn't really be addressed because it's really more of an HR issue has impacted us, not last week, the week before last week. a day.
Any idea who this regional is that they're negotiating with?
I can guess, because they already have a pilot flow-through agreement with, Republic, so I would assume it would be them, but I, would also not be surprised if it was someone else. And that's my report. Any questions?
All right, I think it's time for some new business.
Okay, so there are three different contracts, for the board to approve this month. And I'm gonna try, we're all part of the packet, so, well, if I get the right pages. So the first is the, ARPA grant for us, and that is in the amount of $32,000. So this is very similar to the ARPA funds that we've received from the county that we were just basically authorizing spending. This is a sub-grant of a grant issued to the state for airports, and our sub-grant number here, and I think this table that shows allocation. So based on your airport size, you basically fall into a couple different categories. So most airports are 32,000. Those that have higher traffic levels get 59. Some that are small get 22. So Holland, for some reason. This is very similar. The process will be to our previous CARES and CRISA, I think were the two previous rounds. So I would ask the board for approval of this grant. And in this case, and in the third one, authorizing me to execute it.
You have the number,
For what?
airport rescue state block grant number, assuming that's what you're gonna need? Or is it, that number?
I would use this one.
MBL 13222?
Yes.
I will make a motion to accept the, grant, ARPA funds of 2021 for MBL -13222.
And authorize
Henry.
me,
And authorize the airport manager to execute that.
they require digital signatures for the state.
Or is that too harsh a language?
Second?
Do we need a roll call vote for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Lasky, Mr. Daunt,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Gentile,
Yes.
Goodman, Ms. Kimber.
Next, we have, this year completed, this past year, we completed a roughly $200,000 grant to do additional to do testing of our PFAS on airport property. The State Department Eagle had more funding available and put out another round of requests for bids to utilize that funding. So our consultant and contractor has put together a request, and we've been awarded pending the board's acceptance of the grant. Passed it already? I think I did. This grant for, basically it is 2 more years of monitoring the existing wells and, some additional testing that Eagle had recommended, be done. And the grant is, find it, I know it's $204,000 and some odd dollars. $204,094.
Okay, so the name of the grant is?
Airport grant?
I'll make a motion to accept the PFAS airport grant agreement between Michigan Department of Environment, or I should say Eagle, and the Manistee Blacker Airport Authority. Giving Barry permission to execute the grant.
Have a second on that?
Yes, we would second that.
Okay, Mr. Daunt,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Ms. Goodman, Kaminsky, Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Lasky.
Okay, and then the third one is, this is an annual thing. State has a small grant, State Aeronautics has a small grant program, for airports, to offset some of the costs of our annual recurrent firefighter training. It's a $2,000 grant per airport, and that's what this is. And this is something we get every year. So that contract number is the 2023-0262.
So moved.
Second.
And there should be noted that you're authorizing me to sign, because that's one of the things that we have to attest to.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Gentili,
Yes.
Ms. Goodman, Kaminsky, Mr. Egan,
Yes.
Ms. Lasky, and Mr. Daunt.
Yes.
Last month, we had talked about, getting our consultants in to basically, talk to us about, basically our runway length and what we can do about that. I haven't scheduled that yet, but, on the list. That takes us through the new business.
Good deal. All right, so under old unfinished business, we have the township zoning ordinance. Do we have any updates on that?
That, I think that made it into your packet finally this month, is the one-page write-up. Not, I know Kristen has it.
It should be in there.
I
I know that for sure it was in the minutes.
yes, I knew I saw it
Mhm,
somewhere.
it's in there.
It was in the
So
minutes.
do you want me to just keep putting it with every agenda then until,
Yeah, why don't we? I knew I'd seen it somewhere, so yeah, it was attached. Like the last page on the minute.
which I don't, copy of it right here.
Yeah.
I don't think
We got it here.
yeah, but at this point, I don't think we need to take any action, but, get on the agenda for next month, maybe when we have better attendance.
Right.
I don't have an update, on the Leo letter of agreement yet. And then the last item is a copy of the bylaws was included somewhere. Again, I think that was at the end of the, minutes of the last meeting. Board had asked to have a copy.
Yep.
I'll just add the bylaws and the zoning ordinance into every agenda then. So then that way there's always reference.
Until,
Okay. All right. Are there any comments left to make?
There's always more, but what's the sense?
Very interesting.
Yeah. Fair enough. Anything else from anyone? Hearing no comments? Or have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Do it by the call of the chair, 'cause it makes it smoother.
All in favor, leave. Thanks, everybody.